Hi, this is Chris Pells. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the changes and additions to the Visual Studio 2008 IDE. Most of the settings from Visual Studio 05 can be imported into 08, and when you first install 08, if it's on the same machine as 05, when you start it up, you'll be prompted as to whether or not you want to migrate your 05 development settings forward. Now in this case, I've already installed 08 previously, so we wouldn't get that prompt, but there is a way to manually import the settings from 05. So let's take a look at how to do that. So we'll switch here over to 05, and we'd go up to the Tools menu, select Import and Export Settings, Export, and you can then select which of the settings you would like to import, or rather export in this case. So we'll just take the ones that are currently selected. Then it prompts us as to where we want to store the settings file. We'll just take that default. Save. We've exported the settings, so we're all set here in 05. Flip back over to 08. Do a similar process, but in this case we'll import Tools, Import and Export Settings, Import. Prompts us whether we want to save the current settings. Good idea, so we'll take that. Then here we have to select which settings we want to import. In this case we want to go over to that 05 settings file right here that we exported, and we'll select that file. Next, and then it brings in all those settings. You could alter those settings here, meaning that we could choose not to import some of the ones that we exported from 05. Once you're done with that, you just click Finish, and it will import all the settings. One final thing to note here is that any third-party add-ins or code snippets will not be automatically migrated forward, and you will have to migrate them manually. The Community menu in VS05 here has been removed in the 08 version, and several of the options have been migrated forward into new options in 08. The Ask a Question and Check Question Status are now in an MSDN Forums option, and Send Feedback has been renamed to Report a Bug. The other options in the Community menu are no longer available. So let's switch over to 08 here and just take a look at where these options live now. And so the Community menu is no longer here, as I just mentioned, and under Help we have MSDN Forums, which is previously send a question and check on a question, and the Send Feedback, as I said, is now Report a Bug. There's several general IDE improvements here in 08, and to demonstrate a few of these, what I've done is created a solution here with a single website and class library, and I've opened up several of the classes and pages here, as well as the web.config file. Now in previous versions, when you hit Control-Tab, you'd just be shown a list of the open windows so you could move to them. But in this one, when I hit Control-Tab, what we get is a nice summary window that shows us not only the names of the active files, but the tool windows that we currently have open. And then you'll see as I cycle through the files, it gives us a little thumbnail on the right side which shows us the contents of that window, which makes it a little easier for selection. You can then obviously migrate or move to that particular window you've selected. You can also click on any one of the active tool windows to move to that. Another feature has to do with docking tool windows, and I know it's always been a little bit problematic for me as to where a tool window might end up when you go to dock it. So let's take the toolbox here as an example, and if we start to float the toolbox, we'll see we get indicators as to potential locations for docking, and if we highlight or hover over one of those indicators, we get a nice blue highlight showing us where the window would end up. In this case, within this container, this is the potential locations, the 4 sides, plus if it was tabbed as another window here with a start page. And you get the same thing if you go over another tool window. So let's go here to the Solution Explorer, and we get the same sort of visual indicator that shows us potential locations for our toolbox window. One other small but useful setting is up here under the Tools menu in the Options. And for fonts and colors, we've always been able to set the settings for various things like text editor and printer. And now there's a new choice called Environment Font, and what this does is it covers the font for anything that you have not set specifically here in this drop-down list. So if you don't see the specific item in this drop-down list, then it would be covered by whatever setting is in the environment font. Multi-targeting has been added in Visual Studio 08. So when you go to create a new project here, we'll see that in the upper right corner of the Add New Project window, there's now a drop-down list which specifies which version of the framework you want to target. So in this case, let's take 3.5 for a Windows Form application. And once you've created the project, you can also go up to the project settings here. In the case of Visual Basic, go to the Advanced Compile settings. And down here you can see we can change it as well from 2, 3, or 3.5. In C# you'll find these settings under the Build settings rather than the Advanced Compile settings. Windows Presentation Foundation applications are fully supported in Visual Studio 08. When you go to add a new project type, you'll see we have both WPF application as well as WPF browser application templates. And in this case, we'll create a WPF application. We get the XAML editor here with a split screen view. On the top, we get the graphical representation, the XAML on the bottom. The two are kept in sync. If we were to resize this window here, you'll see the XAML code in the editor below is automatically changed. We also have full IntelliSense in XAML. So start to type here, we get all the potential XAML elements that we could add here, just like we would if we were typing ASP or in Visual Studio or C# or Visual Basic. You also have the ability to set what type of WPF application project you are creating here. So if you go up to the properties of the application, under the Application tab, you'll see there's an application type which has application, class library, and consoled application. Visual Studio 08 has the web application project type that was added in Service Pack 1 of Visual Studio 05. Let's just show you where that is in case you're not familiar with it. When you add, it's new project, not new website. And under the project template types, there's an ASP.NET Web Application project type. And if we create one of those, we get a project structure very similar to what we had in Visual Studio 03. And there's a couple changes here to note. One is this no longer requires front page server extensions, and it's also not limited to IIS. You can use the local web server that was introduced in 05. One of the things that happens here is that when you compile it, what we get here is a single DLL representing the website. So if you're migrating a website from 03 up here to 08, you may find the web application useful. There's a nice new editing feature for web pages in the IDE. Let's take a look at default ASPX here in our sample website. We have the traditional source view and design view, but then now there's also a split view here which shows us the graphical on the bottom, source on the top. If we were to take an element such as the checkbox here and put it into the div in the graphical view, we'll see that the source view is updated. And the reverse is also true. Let's put a button here. And there we go. And we'll see that we're getting a message that the source is out of sync with the design view. So we just click here, and there we have both in sync. Another area of the IDE that has some nice improvements is the management and editing of cascading style sheets. Let's open up a sample web page here, default ASPX, put it in the new split view. And the first tool window that's been added, which I want to show you, is called Manage Styles, and that's up here on the Format menu under CSS Styles, Manage Styles. And this particular style window provides us with a summary of all the styles that are available in the current page. Those in this case shown are in a default CSS, which is linked into the page, as well as a local style definition in the page for this new style 1. And notice as I hover over any one of the styles, it shows me in the tooltip window the complete definition of the style. In addition, there is a circle around some of these elements, and that indicates that those particular rules are used in the current page. You can edit any of these styles directly by either double-clicking on it, and it goes right to the style definition, and we can alter something here. Let's put this in as font weight. We'll make it bold here. As soon as we synchronize the graphical view, we get our change back over here in new style. In the tooltip window, we see the font weight bold is there now as well. The other addition is a CSS Properties window, which is up here under the View menu, CSS Properties. And what this shows us is the current applied rules for the active element. In this case, we haven't selected any element in the designer, so the body element is being selected and it's showing us the rules that are applying to that. Now, if we select a particular element, let's take the second line item element here. We'll see that that is added to the applied rules. And also notice down here in the CSS Properties window that we have repeating properties, in this case font family and font size, and the first instance has a red line through it, and what that means is that it's showing us we are overriding an instance of that particular property. Say font size was medium higher up the inheritance tree, and we have now overridden it with 20 pixels. We can edit these values right here, so let's take this down, let's say to 15 pixels, and we get that change automatically reflected in the design mode over here on the right. Now we're currently in the summary mode in the Cascading Style Sheet Properties window here. So if we turn off the summary mode, then we see not just the properties that are currently applied or used, in this case font family, font size, etc., but we see the complete list of CSS properties, and we can change any of these here as we did with the font size. You also have the ability, like the regular property windows that you're used to sort different ways. Here we have an alphabetical sort of all the CSS properties. And we also have an nice option here that says show set properties on top, so we don't have to scroll through the list trying to find what properties have been set and what have not been set, even though they are bold as compared to normal text. So that's a quick tour of the new features regarding cascading style sheets. There's a number of other new features here that you can take a look at in more detail. So we've taken a tour here of the IDE in Visual Studio 2008 and highlighted some of the nice improvements and additions that should help your productivity when developing applications. I encourage you to look at the other Visual Studio 2008 videos that have more detail on various areas, not just the IDE, but many other areas. This is Chris Pelz. Thank you for your time.